Resident Evil is making a comeback in the film industry, and I cannot wait to see the next film in the series since the last one was so long ago. Wait. Oh yeah, that one. Since the last one was not that long ago, and I actually can't wait to see what it's all about. Now, obviously, I should definitely be a bit more skeptical considering the Resident Evil films don't exactly have the best track record, honestly, but I was really thinking about it for a while, and I think this would be perfect for the franchise if done correctly. The director of the film is going to be Zach Cregger, who, if you don't know, he made the horror film Barbarian back in 2022, which is a film that I very much like. And I have to say this before I explode, because when I heard this director was going to direct the next Resident Evil movie, I was like, I don't know that guy. But then I saw Barbarian and I was like, oh my god. So, to put this in perspective, Barbarian wasn't made that long after Welcome to Raccoon City release, but it was a small enough gap for me to say that I still have it thought up in my mind at the time. And especially in 2021 and 2022, I was really into the Resident Evil phase. So, while I was watching Barbarian in theaters, there were specific scenes and angles in that film that in my head I was thinking to myself, wow, this would be so cool if they directed a Resident Evil 1 movie like this. Who would know that 3 years later that the same guy who directed those scenes would go on to be the top choice of director for this one. Now, I don't really know the director's track record, honestly. I mean, yeah, he's made Barbarian, which is, in my opinion, a great film and all, but what else has he done? Well, from the looks of it, he's directed Miss March, a few TV series, and the Civil War on Drugs, which all seem to have okay ratings on them, but realistically speaking here, I really don't have much to say on those films, because they aren't directly related to horror in nature and were made over a decade ago. Things change, and considering Barbarian was the last one to release, I do have a bit more hope for the guy, but I can't help but look into the other movies just in case. Other than Resident Evil and Barbarian, he's also directing another horror film in the process named Weapons, which sounds very interesting. But other than that, I don't really know much about the director too much to really judge, but all I can really say is that I really enjoyed Barbarian, and I found a lot of scenes in that movie to be really well made, especially the horror aspects of it. I don't really want to get too much into it because I don't want to get copyrighted, and I think the film itself shows and tells for itself, and you should definitely go check it out. Also, recently the director has been in Las Vegas and mentioned this to exhibitors. There's a moment that comes in almost every Resident Evil game, where you find yourself in a dark passageway, your health is almost zero, and there's no way around. You have to go through, but you know that there's something awful for you in the darkness. That is the thrill that the Resident Evil games have perfected. My movie will be built in the spirit of those games and follows one central protagonist from point A to point B as they descend deeper into hell. Now, if that doesn't sound cool as hell, I don't know what does, because I think this guy knows what he's doing. It sounds awesome and feels like someone who actually cares about the legacy of the games, and is a player himself, rather than someone who didn't play any of the games at all. Now, outside of just talking about the director, the company that the movie will be under is PlayStation Productions, and the writer of the film is Shay Hatton, who, if I'm being honest, has a worrying track record. Now, if you look at all these movies, a lot of these are really just screenplays, and not a lot of them are just her writing the stories as most movies usually go, but it's definitely something that should be brought up in my opinion, as writers are very integral to movie storytelling. I cannot believe I just said that out loud. That being said though, I mean, Resident Evil as a franchise never really had the greatest storytelling out there, but I always found that the concepts of the games were extremely unique, as well as having interesting premises for the most part, as well as having some of the best gameplay that stands out in front of the majority of other horror games. It doesn't necessarily have to have the greatest storytelling, but this is a movie, not a video game. And while movies don't exactly have to have great stories to be a good or exciting film, I'm just worried that it will just become another Welcome to Raccoon City. Although I have my worries about this film, the production's only really just started, and we're probably not even close to having a trailer on this movie yet, so I think it's best to just wait and see what it'll be like. But regardless of what it will end up being, I'm certainly still excited for the movie, but a little bit worried given the circumstances. That being said though, lately there has been some actors being cast in this film, and I'm very curious as to who they will be playing. I'm also very curious if the film will be based on the franchise as a whole, and be its own thing similar to the Anderson films, films, or it will just be based on a specific game. I mean, just imagine Resident Evil 1 in live action, not put together like Welcome to Raccoon City did, but just solely as its own separate entity in the mansion. Or maybe Resident Evil 4 on the island. Or even more probable, being based on Resident Evil 7, with Ethan being stuck with the Bakers once again in a messed up rated R crooked live action film. I mean, wouldn't that be so cool? It's very likely that it's going to be its own thing and have a lot of references to the game. I'd probably expect maybe something that takes place in Raccoon City, or maybe it will be based on Resident Evil 4. I really don't know what they're gonna do with this, but I think it's very interesting based on what he has said so far. I definitely don't think it's going to be based on Resident Evil 5 or 6, I will say that for sure though. Also, it is very possible that this Resident Evil movie might be the first live-action film for Resident Evil that actually takes place within the main universe. Maybe for once it's not going to be non-canon. But wouldn't it be awesome to have this as one of the best horror game movies ever made? I mean, yeah, there's movies that are based on games like Silent Hill, which is a movie that I actually personally really like. I know that's a controversial opinion, but I do actually really enjoy that movie. Who knows, but honestly, whatever the movie will end up being, I'm certainly down to check it out and see it in theaters. With that being said though, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel as it really helps out a lot. Also, leave a comment down below on how you feel about the upcoming Resident Evil film and if you are excited or not. I'm trying to stay optimistic because I love this franchise and will probably find some enjoyment out of it even if it's bad, because I do love a lot of terrible horror movies and think they're really funny. But anyway, I'm dragging this on a little bit too long. Okay, my bad. Goodbye.